So anyway, again, I'm Gibbs. I'm with the Audio Engineering Society here in the San Francisco section. If it's your first time at the Video Summit, welcome. There's lots of networking breaks because Marty's big thing, Marty who, this is brainchild, it's all about networking. So we are already into our 30 minutes of the next presenter. First time I saw Jessica talk about what she's talking about, my jaw was on the floor, so I'm gonna shut up and turn it over to Jessica Powell.
Hi, I'm Jessica. I am the CEO and co-founder of AudioShake. I just came back from NAMM, so I think the very funny thing about audio people, like he was just saying, is that everyone's like running away from sound most of the time. But I'm here to talk about real-time separation. We can also talk about post-production, but I'll try and focus primarily on real-time. So really obvious starting statement for everyone in this room. Sound, of course, is very crucial to media workflows, even if we are all in a much smaller room than all the people that are video over there. Obviously, also, the complexity of that sound, the literal noise of that sound can limit its reach, distribution, intelligibility, monetization, and of course, accessibility. And so that's where we come in. So we separate broadcast audio or post-production audio into its component parts so that you have more control over your audio. And you can do all kinds of different editing and mixing tasks with it. So we work pretty broadly across the media and entertainment and tech industries. We work with most of the big tech companies, but also the major labels, large film studios, a bunch of leagues and broadcasters in the US, and lots of sports teams as well. And what we do different things for all of them, but fundamentally, we are taking audio that is noisy. And again, noise can mean literal noise, like out there. It can also just mean really great, beautiful noise with a lot of overlapping frequency. So we can take something like this.
Pass interference. Offense, number 11. 10-yard penalty. Would be fourth down.
And we can isolate just what you're searching for.
Pass interference. Offense, number 11. 10-yard penalty.
Now, if we were probably, interrupted him. If we were using this, probably what we'd also want is we don't want to lose all that presence, right? But we didn't want it to be as noisy. So we would isolate both the dialogue and the background, and you could just turn down the background audio. So let's talk about how this gets used in real-time workflows, particularly in sports and broadcast. So a lot of what we do involves isolating speech, and in some cases even boosting the intelligibility of that speech. So we can isolate clean dialogue, like you just heard, from background noise. We can also make it easier to understand. Sometimes you can have great separation, but you have two players on the court, and that speech is not very clear. So we can improve the intelligibility of that speech as well, for a better viewing experience. We've also found that if you can isolate dialogue, it makes a much better input into ASR and transcription and captioning systems, right? Because you're no longer also, that captioning is not, or transcription engine is not having to grapple with all that noise. So it depends on the person's data, it depends on the noise, but we see ASR transcription in noisy environments increase accuracy by over 30%. Kind of a meaningless statistic, because again, whose data is it? But in general, that's what our customers see. Also, just much better fan and viewer experiences, right? Because you can now do all the things that you would do if you had the luxury of time that you have maybe in post-production or when you're getting all of the streams. So you can lower or boost specific elements, again, eliminate them or just turn them down, boost them. You can just create cleaner mixes for things like highlights, promos, archives, and so forth. And then this one, which I'm going to spend a little bit more time on, is commercial music and copyright fines. So talking to a lot of our broadcast and sports customers, this is a really big pain point. Copyrighted music gets caught in the background, and you don't necessarily want it. So you are a social media team that is shooting on the sidelines. You're a broadcast team that maybe initially has the rights, but everything that follows, you're not going to have the rights. And there's nothing you can do because Kendrick Lamar is appearing in the background at some moment that you want to send all around the world. You just don't want Kendrick Lamar in there. So it can lead to all kinds of, you've probably all seen, really, really big copyright fines when that content is distributed. And so then a lot of our customers, what they've ended up doing is just having rules internally that if there's music, it just doesn't go out. So lots and lots of missed opportunity because of that. So what we're able to do is we are able to detect and remove music in real time. And the first part of that is building a really, really, really good music detection system that is trained specifically for broadcast and sports content, so for noisy audio. A lot of the existing content recognition systems work great, but they have to generalize to really broad kinds of content. So if someone's uploading a Justin Bieber cover to SoundCloud is a very different problem from, again, that Kendrick Lamar song playing in a stadium where you have crowd noise and you have commentators, and all of that is confusing the system in terms of recognition. So we're able to detect it, then we can remove it, and we can retain all the natural sound and the dialogue. So you have a very natural sounding clip, but the music's been removed. That means that you can then publish it to social, clean simulcasts, and then, of course, all kinds of archival opportunities as well. So this is how it works. I'm going to take you through two different workflows. This first one is for real time. Obviously, all of you have a very small envelope that you're working with, and so this is really the simplest way to tackle it. And then I'll also touch on a post-production workflow where you have a little bit more time. So the media file comes in. Again, it's a streaming input. We're going to detect the presence of music at a very, very high rate of accuracy. We're going to remove it. And right there, you then have a clip that goes out, again, all in real time, that is free of music. Now, if you have a little bit more time, and actually, let me show you how this works. So I'll show you this clip first.
Calais, shout out to Drew Brooks, shout out to everybody, man. Shout out to my mom, too. My mom got out the car and goes.
Tyreek, what happened this morning?
You know what? I'm not going to comment on any of that, man. Like, whenever stuff come out, we
the best in the nation.
We the best in the nation, man. But look, like I said, I'm not going to.
So we can do this down to 44 milliseconds of latency. So you just need that little buffer at the start, and then you're good to go. Now let's look if you have a little bit more time. Again, this still can be very fast. So if you're needing to turn around content, we can take a game that's, say, 2 hours, whatever it might be, and this all can be done in under 20 minutes. But again, it requires a little bit more time. So you've got the file. We're going to detect it. We're going to remove the music, but we're also going to hold on to the music. So we've got the music clip here. We're going to run rights recognition against it. And what's neat about this is that now that we have a clean music input, rights recognition accuracy is going to be really good. So all the false positives and negatives that you might grapple with today because of the noise, that goes away. So you now have good rights recognition that's telling you who this track belongs to. And then you can, in the CMS, run this against, is this, lots of folks in sports, for example, use APM, right, as a production library. If you see that it's APM, you're good to go. Whereas you can write the rule that if it's actually coming back with, say, major label content, you're going to publish the AudioShake edited version of the clip. We're also able to output other information. So for example, if there are cue sheets, this is not so much on the broadcast side again, but again, your team that's dealing with cue sheets, they can get back all the rights information and the corresponding timestamps so that they can have accurate reporting. So let's actually see this workflow with that full suite.
Calais, shout out to Drew Brooks, shout out to everybody, man. Shout out to my mom, too. My mom got out the car and goes.
Tyreek, what happened this morning?
You know what? I'm not going to comment on any of that, man. Like, whenever stuff come out, we
the best in the nation.
We the best in the nation, man. But look, like I said, I'm not going to.
So again, in that first workflow, we're just going to remove the music, right? Any music that we hear, we're removing it in real time. In the second workflow, you can get a little bit more granular and be writing the rules on your side about what gets published and what isn't published. This is all available. We have streaming capable, real-time SDKs. We also have APIs and an on-demand platform as well for post-production, social media teams, and so forth. On the real-time side, this is a cross-platform toolkit, works on desktop, mobile, cloud, embedded. Quality is really good. We always feel like we can do better, and the next time you'll see me, I'll say it's gotten even better. We're better than we were this time last year, but it is significantly, significantly better than what is out there for open source. It's also fast, right? So open source is going to be all file-based post-production, whereas what we do runs in real time, and it's optimized for the platform and the processing unit. Latency, like I mentioned, is down to 44 milliseconds. And we can actually get it even lower. If you have a really beefy GPU, we can get it even faster than that. We have something coming on the speech side that I think is around, it's sub 30 milliseconds. And then on the platform side, we support Linux, iOS, macOS, Windows, and Android. And this is a really long list of stuff. So I'm just going to say we are able to, like I said, remove music, help you with the reporting, isolate speech. We can also disentangle multiple overlapping speakers. I didn't show it here today because a lot of demoing, but that one we don't have in real time yet. But again, it's pretty cool. Like you can actually take, I think the most we've ever done in one file is separate 50 speakers. But actually the majority of audio you're ever really getting is really 2 or 3 speakers. But we're able to separate those voices. So even like 2 men yelling at each other during some sports commentary, we've seen that before from some of our broadcasters, we're able to separate those into different streams, which is cool when you're thinking about like real-time dubbing, which I think is a workflow that people are long-term very interested in. Again, for noise, great. For anything where you just want to be able to have more control over background and bleed and so forth. And then, yeah, we're available both in real time and on our API. And I'm happy to take any questions.
My name is Mark Lazarus. My catalog, Ocho Music Group, is Latin music for sports. We are distributed by APM. And lately, I've been flooded with people submitting music for the catalog that is generated or AI assisted. And I'm seeing a lot of clients that are, they want to be very careful that the music that's coming out of the broadcast is not AI music. Are there any plans to reconfigure the algorithm to sort of recognize, the AI slop that's going to do that?
Correct me if I'm wrong. I would think that the most effective controls on that side would actually happen at the catalog level, and then any technologies at the catalog, like that APM or you are using to detect the submissions. One could conceivably do that in real time, but that feels kind of downstream to me in terms of, but I agree with you. Like we've definitely heard from our customers, none of them right now are looking at generative music as again, who knows what happens in the future, but they want library music.
Because while sync libraries are still not touching it for multiple legal reasons, ASCAP and EMI are paying some royalties for people to create like a pseudo remix of something that they compose, because they are putting in Apple Music and Spotify. So Spotify is now using only AI-generated music, and if somebody uses it, then you actually pick it up as something copyrighted, but it's still the master recording could not be copyrighted. So.
So I think we're pretty far downstream from that. I think all that's going to sit at the metadata provider level, right, in terms of how those tracks, again, putting aside detection, because there are technologies around detecting if something's AI generated, and there's the whole debate around at what point do we call something AI generated when we're outside of the push button automatic generation. But once there's a human involved to a certain degree, there's that piece of it. Then there's actually the metadata part, right, which is when that music is distributed, whether that's then going to a library or sync library that then is going to license it on, or if it's getting distributed through one of the music distributors.
That's the real issue. I mean, I'm not accepting it, but, but they're on Spotify.
Yeah, I think the metadata side, like all of that, the rules of what to do with the content are written by our customers. Because again, like if they have an APM library, they want that music, they're licensing it, it's great music. And if it's not that, then they're just usually, I mean, from what I've seen, they're writing the rules to not pass that music on.
At some point, maybe the engine can recognize something that is not copyrightable because it was artificially created.
Potentially, I think we would need to see that at our point of interaction, that's what customers are asking us to do. Today, I would say it'd be a little bit thorny because I think what is a horn, right? Like what about like music that's created that wouldn't be recognized as a copyrighted song, but is music like just some sort of instrument that's playing. So I think it's just not something that we've seen. I mean, I think it's a very valid question. I just think it's going to get whatever the policies and or processes that are put in place are probably likely to happen. Because like a broadcaster, I mean, you all can correct me, I don't think is just going to randomly start, unless they've deciding themselves to go generate music. I don't think they're going to pull something from Spotify and just play it, because then they would be on the hook for, right? So I think it happens before it gets to us.
You had a slide in there that showed like the video player with your dialogue and background sliders so that you could do real time. just an effect. Do you see a version of this that can even make its way to, say, the end user, people who are watching this, so that you have someone who's hard of hearing or challenged in some way that they can just say, hey, the music was too loud, the sound effects were too loud, lose the dial, lower the music, just isolate what you're saying.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. So we do also work within platforms, which is why we run on edge devices as well, so that someone could do that. You could also imagine a world in terms of you think about how mixes are delivered, and I would argue that the way mixes are delivered sometimes don't necessarily reflect the reality of what kinds of devices people have in their homes. So couldn't something like AudioShake be an interesting means to be able to get audio to people in a way that actually matches the sound systems they have in their homes? Yeah, absolutely. So in post-production, that's what people do all the time. Live, we don't have that today, but I think that is very possible. What you, like, for example, you would, like, a thing that we are working on is you would take that extracted music. We'll be able to, for those who are going to NAB, come talk to us there, or you can talk to us after this, we can tell you more about it. But you extract the music, you would run metadata extraction, right, to understand the qualities of that music. You could slide something in from your library to replace it that's very similar.
Can you talk about what AudioShake's doing in terms of like stem separation specifically for music, like how granular you guys get?
Yeah, that's where we all started. So we do a lot in music, a lot in immersive as well. We separate vocals, drums, bass, guitar, piano, wind, strings, piano keys, electric, acoustic, synths. We are state-of-the-art on those tasks, and we can run on device. So we are in some of the major streaming platforms. We run on in a lot of applications as well. The biggest use cases, I would say, sync licensing, where people need to create instrumentals, immersive mixing, and then sometimes, like, this is a little bit less represented, but I would say, and like certainly remixing, DJing, we're in like DJ Pro, but also then some remastering kind of activity, like we were used for De La Soul when they wanted to bring those back to streaming. They needed to work from the original mix to actually get that ready to bring it onto platforms. So we do some work there too, and like removing bleed. A lot of jazz recordings end up being like bleed type things. Yeah.
Can you do anything with removing effects,
Mm-hmm.
like reverb or other types of effects?
Yeah. So effects in like a film sense, we already do that of just isolating like the effects track. And then effects in terms of kind of wet stems versus dry stems, different effects that were applied. We don't have that live today, but it is coming very soon. We are not, other than telling them to behave. You mean like bleeping? No, we don't do that. It comes up occasionally. We don't do that today. Something that we've also been asked about before is things like, this comes mainly from Europe, but like death chants, right? Of like, can you actually remove when people start saying really terrible things in the stadium, like to opposing teams or players? But yeah, we have some ideas around that, but we're not doing those things right now. Yeah, if mono versus stereo, like a thing that we will soon support that we don't today. I'm just going to jump ahead in your question, then I'll come back to the rest. Today we don't do like 5.1, for example. You would need to separate those individually, but support for that's coming soon, where it would just be a single upload. Mono versus stereo, there are some models where you see, I mean, sure, if we could take stereo, we could take stereo, but I think, when we first started, there would have been a much bigger delta in terms of performance on stereo versus mono, but we now deal with such a broad range of content and use cases that mono is also very, very good. And for some use cases, mono is either the only delivery mechanism anyway, or it really is like, it most corresponds to your training data. Like think of call center audio or something like that. So again, it probably depends on the use case.
Thinking more in terms of commands like sound to array sort of consideration. Is there any benefits to more information in that regard, or is it more of a challenge because it's
I'm going to say something, and then my team will come tell me I said the completely wrong thing. But for example, and this may be the wrong analogy, it is incrementally easier, for example, if we had, say, a complicated music track, and you could give us, and really what you're searching for is, I don't know, the drums, and you could give us that track as an instrumental, or you could give us that track as a full mix. Sure, give us the instrumental. But like on music for now, the models are so good that it's quite possible that you would see no difference in the output. But so sure, simpler theoretically should be better, and certainly in some cases it would be. Music removal is like a good, again, I'm kind of like going a little bit off of your question, but just thinking like, sure, the less complex the audio is, that's always going to be a little bit easier. If you think about music removal, the hardest, I mean, we do it every day, but the hardest scenario is Kendrick Lamar is rapping, the commentators are talking, the crowd is going wild. So that's 3 different kinds of voiced input that you're grappling with. And when we first started building music removal models, that was the most likely point of failure. Today still, if we were to fail, it would be like that. But we now handle it much, much better. So, yeah.
What about with churches? So, like, could I use that in the stream, and then it takes, because we've had our stream taken down because YouTube heard copyrighted music, but would AudioShake not be able to go, oh, they're doing a cover of a song that's copyrighted, or would it just hear it and then take it and then replace the audio?
And this is real, we're talking about a stream, right? Yeah, so in the streaming scenario, we're just going to remove music regardless of the rights provenance. I think a real-time version that has the recognition in there is possible, but for today, we're doing the safest version of all, which is, because typically everyone we're working with has really, really small windows in terms of all the other operations that they have to perform to get that stream out. Once you move into post, there's a lot more options and granularity in terms of writing different rules about, because obviously the best clip, again, if we all have the luxury of post, then you have a 2-hour game, and here's APM, we're keeping that piece in. Here's now the major label track, we're removing that, back to production, that kind of thing.
With regard to multi-channel and music, do you have scenarios where customers are asking you to separate the direct and the reverb? You mentioned effects previously, and what kind of applications did you see at the moment?
Speech, that comes up in speech. Particularly in metadata workflows where you just really want to get at the information. Why would you want reverb, for example? On the music side, music is really interesting. And I know there's a lot of music mixers in here, so they'll probably have opinions on this too. But what I see is it depends so dramatically based on the use case. So in my anecdotal experience, and I'm looking at Carrie, I'm looking at a whole bunch of people that can then pipe up. But at least when folks are mixing in immersive, they don't want you to touch stuff, right? Like they want the mix as it was and as faithful to the original mix. They don't want new information. They certainly don't want missing information. They want the wet stems. They don't want to lose any bit of presence or any decision that was made in the mixing environment, compared to like sync licensing where, they're like, that's great, someone applied ducking on the track, but I'm just gonna use the instrumental. I just want you to fill that in. Like, I just want a really clean instrumental. I don't care what effect, like I want they basically want like the dry stem. So it really does depend on the use case in terms of what people want. I do think there's also just interesting kind of restoration type opportunities that for people that are working on certain certain projects.
So the AudioShake technology could be used to remove reverberation, for instance, in recordings. That's a scenario that you sometimes have.
Nothing that is accessible today to the public, but yeah, we're working on that. Yeah.
Sorry, is he talking about reverb that was added in the mix, or natural acoustic reflections?
I interpreted your question as stuff that was added to the mix, and so that's kind of a more common music one. But for example, with speech, that would tend to be like I'm talking in this room, and so we already have something that addresses that on the speech side, but on the music side, that's something we're looking at right now.
You're like in an arena with like lots of echoes. Handle that.
Yeah, I mean, show me what the audio looks like, and I'll tell you to what degree. But yeah, I mean, that's sort of what it's designed for. Yeah, there's sort of I don't need to tell a bunch of audio people this, right? There's like an art in how much you are subtracting and what you are leaving in. I don't know, I was watching something the other day where it was like a podcast clip on TikTok, and it's something I've seen a lot lately, where I think a very popular tool around kind of isolation and noise removal is being used, but it's so stark that it produces an effect that feels kind of unnatural. It doesn't actually, because you've lost all the acoustics of the room in which it was being recorded. And maybe that becomes its own new aesthetic, and that's how we hear podcasts, right? But I think it generally doesn't sound like real world audio. And so I think what we're always trying to navigate that balance of how do you actually have all the information separated, and then people can work with what they want to eliminate, what they want to turn down or boost. Yeah. Great, thank you all for coming.